OK， 所有乐活50加的朋友们，大家今天是 Wednesday afternoon， 大家好。我们今天呢特别有一场大家很关注也很需要知道的信息，在今天这一场讲座里面会有我们这个重磅级的这个嘉宾，然后我们这个非常专业的这个嘉宾主持莉莉六为我们带来了这个Jennie Chin Hansen。是一位非常非常不容易邀请到的，我们在这个所谓的这个 aging industry 哈，在这个老龄学的这个领域里面是第一把手哈，所以我今天也不多讲，只是要求大家在全场把你们的麦克风关静音，千万不要打开你们的麦克风去影响我们的嘉宾的演讲。听完了之后，最后会保留时间给大家做 Q&A。那同时呢，今天我们的5点钟到5点30分是 SCE 南加电力公司的第2场讲座，是会接着进行。那我们的抽奖也会在那个阶段开始。So now I'm handing over the microphone to Lily Liu and Jennie Chin Hansen. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you very much to Happy 50 Plus for the delightful opportunity to join everyone today. It is an honor to be here because, as you all know, May is Older Americans Month as well as Asian Heritage Month. I'll let Susan Wang be the interpreter so that our colleagues who would like to hear this in Mandarin can join us.
今天非常感谢大家参加，因为我们知道5月是美国庆祝老年人的月，还有庆祝亚太传统的月。所以我们今天非常荣幸来这里跟大家聚一聚。
Yes. Again, my name is Lily Liu. My Chinese name is Liu Yijun, and it is my honor to have known our guest of honor today, Ms. Jennie Chin Hansen, for over 20 years.
我的名字叫莉莉刘，我的中文名字叫刘怡君。我有认识我们今天的贵宾大概超过20年的时间。
Yes, please let me have Ms. Jennie Chin Hansen greet our Happy 50 Plus community and thank you.
我们现在请她说几句话。
Thank you, Lily, and thank you, Susan, for the interpreting. And I want to also greet Amanda Lee, who has been an incredible leader in the community in Southern California to start the organization. Congratulations, and thank you for having us here.
谢谢 Lily， 也谢谢 Susan 的邀请。我非常感谢乐活50加的 Amanda Lee， 她是在南加州老龄的领域的一个很好的领袖。非常谢谢有邀请我今天参加。
Yes, it is such a rare opportunity to have a leader in the field of aging like Jennie Chin Hansen, who is also Chinese American.
在老年的领域里面，非常少见有一个华裔的领袖，就是我们的 Jennie， 陈秀珍小姐，陈珍娜小姐。
And we are so proud that our Chinese American community has produced someone who is such a champion for all of us who are aging here in America together.
我们非常有荣幸，因为他为我们老年人跟我们华裔的老年人做一些倡议的活动。
That is why we're so grateful to Happy 50 Plus for giving us this opportunity to share a bit about her life, to share a lot about all the things that she's been a leader in the field of aging.
所以我们今天非常感谢乐活50加给我们这个机会，来听一听这位华裔在老龄领袖的领域的领袖，然后我们也可以听一听在有关于这个全方位照护老人的一个机构。
And because I so respect Jennie Chin Hansen, she always likes to continue learning. We will have an opportunity to have all of you put in the chat items that you're interested in learning more about in the future, as well as how you yourself feel or any issues you have identified about growing older here in America.
因为这个陈珍娜女士，她也很希望知道我们亚裔在美国 就是变老的时候的过程有什么样，我们还需要知道什么样的知识，你们随时可以放到聊天室里面，你们还希望从这个专家身上学到什么东西。
I'm going to break into Chinese. 今天是太难得一个机会了，所以请大家参加，因为我们也想从您那边学习。Today is such a rare opportunity. Please take advantage of this opportunity. We also want to learn from you. So let's not waste any time and let's begin with some questions for Jennie. Susan, please interpret first.
所以我们现在就马上就要开始我们今天的访谈。
Yes, so Jennie, you have such an interesting and rich life, ups and downs.
Jennie, 你的人生是非常充满精彩的，有很多的高潮跟低谷。
Because you've been so gracious to share some family photos, allow me to share some of your family photos. And won't you please tell us from the beginning your own story about your family as immigrants to America, please, and your lovely parents.
我们非常感谢您跟我们分享您的家庭的照片，可不可以跟我们讲一下从你的家庭的历史开始？
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I hope to keep my part of my history rather short because what's more important today is that we get to know one another as well as have a chance to have you learn a little bit about care for older individuals who need more care. And then finally, to make sure questions that you may have, we can begin to raise. And if we don't cover them all today, at another time that we could, I'd be more than happy to be as helpful as possible.
非常感谢您，但是我希望把我自己的故事缩短一点。我们今天最主要是要关注在美国长者的一些照料的问题，然后我也希望知道你们在美国这个老龄的过程有没有什么的希望知道的，我可以再回来跟大家分享。
Well, thank you. My parents were immigrants from Canton, and I will explain this particular slide as to why there's a gold medal on the right-hand side.
我的父母亲是来自广东，然后我马上就会跟大家解释为什么这个右边有一个这个叫这个铜板。
And I apologize to you that I am not able to speak Mandarin. My parents spoke Cantonese, so my first language, and when I went to school, I spoke no English, but over the years, my Chinese has become a lot weaker. So I am so grateful for the support of both Lily and Susan.
我对不起，我不会讲国语。我的小的时候会讲一些广东话，因为我们在家里有讲广东话。但是这么多年下来，我现在讲英文是我主要的语言，所以今天谢谢 Lily 跟 Susan 帮我翻译。
Yes, and so the picture you see of the medal is because my father had come to the United States to work. And many Chinese men did this for that generation. What they wanted to do was to earn money to send back to their family in China. So my mother was in China, my grandmother, and I had two brothers.
就像很多第一代的美国华裔，我爸爸那个时候来的时候是来工作的，然后那个时候我妈妈还有我的两个哥哥都还是在中国。
My father served in the US Army, and because he did that and had an honorable discharge, he was able to bring over my mother and my brothers. And I was born here 3 months after my mother came in New York City.
我的爸爸因为是在美国的军队工作过，然后他是荣誉的退休，所以他退休了，从军队退休以后，就把我的妈妈还有两个哥哥 从广东接来美国。那我自己是生在美国纽约州的。
And when I was in the 4th grade, we moved to Boston, Massachusetts, where there was a Chinatown. On the left-hand side, you see that there are Chinese girls there with Girl Scout uniforms, and there's a nun in the background. And this is a social center that helped Chinese girls learn American customs.
我小学4年级的时候从纽约搬到波士顿去。那左边这张照片你们可以看到是我小学的时候参加女童子军，然后后面有一些修女，她帮我们介绍一些美国的历史跟文化，让我们好好的融入美国的社会。
And the picture on the right happens to be my college picture. I studied nursing at a Jesuit college called Boston College. And if you see the one little red circle there, that is me. And I am the only Chinese person at Boston College on the whole university.
我在右边的这一张是我从那个护士学校，就是波士顿大学毕业的时候，你们可以看到整个学校就是只有一位华裔，就是我。
And so this is where the story gets really interesting, isn't it, Jennie? Because you started studying and your first focus was actually on adolescence.
故事越来越精彩了，就是我们看到你那个时候还是很年轻的时候，大概10几岁。
So the next picture comes to, I started in working with young adults and teenagers. And over the course of years, I worked in what's more community health. So I ended up having from pregnant mothers to older people. And I, by luck, ended up here in San Francisco with a program called Unlock.
我年轻的时候是从青少年到怀孕的妇女到老年人都有跟他们工作过，然后70年代非常幸运的，我到了旧金山，在安乐居开始上班。
This was a time in Chinatown in San Francisco that as people got older and they needed much more care, the common practice was to go to a nursing home.
在70年代，我们发现在旧金山的华裔长者，他们有的时候需要更多的照顾的时候，就会被送到疗养院去。
But it turned out that there were not very many nursing homes. And so when people in the Chinese and Italian community in this part of San Francisco had to live in a nursing home, they had to go far away, like 30 miles.
但是那个时候在旧金山的疗养院很少，所以如果需要去疗养院的中国人或意大利人，他们就要去大概30英里以外的一个机构。
So the community learned that we could do something different since there was no space and people had to leave to go so far at a time that they are very fragile in their life. And they went into places where people only spoke English and they only had American food. So we did something different. We decided to create the idea of a nursing home without walls, but to stay in the community.
那个时候我们在旧金山的华附，我们就决定要盖一些会有讲中文的工作人员，还有中国食物的设施，可以让这些长者来就是休养。
So I think in the next picture, it will show that I've been here at this place of work for almost 25 years. So it was a good idea to try in San Francisco. And when we had some money to test it, we wondered, can this be only in San Francisco or could it be somewhere else?
那我们就开创了这个安乐居，25年以后非常的成功，我们就想说，可不可以在旧金山以外的地区也开始试行这一种模式。
Yes, and because today's focus is on PACE, we'll first finish the very interesting different aspects of Ms. Jennie Chin Hansen's professional career, and then delve deeply into the innovation and leadership she had with the PACE program.
我们今天的关注是全方位长者照顾的一个设施，所以我们先从这个陈女士的一个她的资历开始，然后我们会马上就进入到这个 PACE 这个全方位长者照顾的设施是怎么样的一个模式。
I think her life story is also a great example for all of us of finding meaning and purpose either in the professional career or in retirement, because she spent 25 years at Unlock and then moved on to do a volunteer position and then went back into the workforce.
这个陈女士的人生，她也是一个很好的借鉴。她从非常专业的一个，然后她退休了以后，她也做过很多有意义、人生意义贡献的一些事情。
So Jennie, explain these 3 very interesting photos, and you never seem to change. All these years you haven't changed.
You're more than kind. I think I've changed quite a bit, but bottom line is that these 3 pictures, and I think I'm just seeing these just for the first time, as many of you are, because of the graciousness of Lily Lute and Susan to get this work ready. So I just want to thank you, since I have not even seen this before.
这个是我3个做过义工的职位，然后我也是今天第一次看到这些照片，我非常感谢2位Lily 跟 Susan 找到这些照片。
Please tell us, after 25 years at Unlock, you ended up at AARP in a volunteer leadership position, and that was a time of great work on the Affordable Care Act. What did you learn from that experience, please? Susan?
您在安乐居工作25年以后，您来到 AARP 乐龄会，变成我们的义工领袖。请问您这个转折是怎么样？
Well, I was very lucky. I spent 8 years as a volunteer for AARP on the board of directors. And what I ended up having the opportunity to do was being elected president of the 38 million member organization. During a time, you see in the middle, President Obama became the president and started his health care coverage program.
我很荣幸的在 AARP 乐龄会做了8年的领事，之后变成他们的义工领导。然后在我这个担任领导的时候，那个奥巴马总统刚好是总统。然后他推动一项那个医疗改革的活动。
And I met both Lily and Susan as a result of this, because they both worked for AARP.
我那个时候就是认识 Lily 跟 Susan， 因为他们2位都是在 AARP 乐龄会上班。
We were so proud because you were AARP's very first Asian American president, which is the highest ranking volunteer position. You were a volunteer.
那时候工作的亚太裔都非常的以这个陈女士为荣，因为她是第1位华裔的这个我们最高的义工领袖。
After all of that activity, I decided I want to do one more job, and so I was invited to become the CEO, the chief executive of a national organization called the American Geriatric Society. And these are all the doctors and nurses and social workers who really focus on the care of older people. And I did that for 5 years.
在 AARP 乐龄会以后，我决定要去美国老龄医生跟护士的一个机构当他们的领导。那我在那边做了5年。
Thank you. I know that was a beautiful story about how you went from being an immigrant daughter to now such a leader in the aging field.
Thank you, Lily. And I have a chance now. I do not work full time. I work as a consultant, and I do some work to help establish geriatric emergency departments here in San Francisco.
我那个时候是一个顾问，然后我在旧金山创立了许多紧急护理的在医院紧急护理的部门。
Thank you.
And yes. I see I want to keep it moving so that we'll have time. This slide talks about that Unlock program picture that you saw. And this now is the formal name so that it's gone beyond San Francisco. You have many in Los Angeles, sites in the Los Angeles area.
所以这个Unlock 后来变成一个 PACE， 就是 PACE 这个照护中心，然后在我们洛杉矶也有一些这个照护中心。
The reason we wanted to invite Ms. Jennie Chin Hansen today is because she is so humble, but she played a very big role in making the PACE program available nationally. That is why we wanted her to talk about her life story first, because the place where everything happened, where it all started, was San Francisco.
这个陈女士非常的客气但是她是一个非常重要的推手，把这个 PACE 这个计划从旧金山推到全美国各地，现在都有这个 PACE 的计划。
So Ms. Chin Hansen, let's go back again. The point was you arrived as a young researcher at Unlock. And then within the 25 years there, you worked your way up to executive director.
所以陈女士她是从最基层的开始做，在安乐居的时候，到了25年以后，她已经是变成最高职位的一个领导。
So let's repeat again, please. When you first arrived at Unlock was happening with this comprehensive care model?
当您刚刚到安乐居的时候是怎么样的一个情形？
Yes, I ended up at that time it was still in test form. So I was part of the research team that tried to figure out how this program was designed, and were people able to actually stay home and be part of the community safely instead of going to a nursing home.
这个我在70年代开始的时候是一个实验性质的，我们是希望在白天有地方可以让人家去接受治疗跟照顾，但是晚上的时候他们回到自己的家里。
The various words on this slide are the special points, the special focus. Could you speak a little bit about that type of care? Was it unique at that time? And what did you do when you take us through a little bit of the history from when you arrived to when it became a national program, please?
请您可不可以讲一下，在您开始的时候，为什么会有这么特别的一个服务？
So often when we need care, we're accustomed to just going to the doctor and getting the care. And hopefully, because we may need help, that we have a wonderful daughter like Lily Lou who takes care of her mother, but she has to do all the work to take care of her mother's medicine, her food, her getting to dentist care. and talking from one doctor who may be a heart doctor and talking to another doctor who may be doing something with our arthritis. This is the normal way that a lot of older people have care when they are at home, but need help.
我们知道在美国有人生病的时候就是去看医生，然后通常是靠家里的成员，像 Lily 一样，她如果妈妈需要去看牙医，她会打个电话给牙医，她如果需要吃药，她会帮她订药。所以我们很多居家的长者在家里都没有办法自己做这些事情，都是要靠家里的人来帮助他们。
So instead of all these activities, responsibilities being only on a wonderful daughter like Lily or some of you, in the community, the ability to have an organization be your manager of all the services and make all the arrangements, take care of the transportation. If you go to the hospital, you have the doctors and the nurses from Unlock be your coordinator. So somebody here takes care of all of these things, and they keep a daughter like Lily informed, and it gives her a break as well.
我们那时候就在想说，如果有一个团队管理的方式，然后不要只靠家庭成员，比如说帮他们协调看所有的医生，然后吃药方面的，还有交通。还有这个膳食，是不是一个很好的主意呢？
But Jennie, you weren't the only one doing research. You also lived it. You yourself were taking care of first bringing your mother to the West Coast and then your father. Could you talk a little bit about taking off the hat of the Unlock worker and putting on the hat of the daughter who saw the potential of such good care from this type of model?
Jennie, 你自己也是照顾您的父母亲，可不可以也分享一下您的经验？
Yes, from the previous slides, you could tell I grew up in Boston and my parents stayed in Boston, but my parents' health was getting worse. And like many adult children, either you move back to where your parents are, or in my case, I decided I am in this kind of work. So I received permission to bring my parents across the country to be with me.
我的父母那个时候年纪渐渐年长，然后他们那时候我就从波士顿把他们搬来旧金山。
And so I was able to take my father, who was living in a nursing home and had a tube feeding him because he couldn't swallow. And it was very touching. I had to remove his tube to get him on the airplane. And then when he came to San Francisco, he and my mother saw each other for the first time in 7 months, and they had never seen each other during the time of both of their illnesses.
我妈妈先来旧金山，然后我爸爸7个月以后才来，因为他那个时候已经住在波士顿的疗养院，然后需要用一个喂食管，所以我把这个喂食管拿掉，然后帮助他上飞机，然后他们我爸爸妈妈7个月以后才第一次见面。
So I felt very lucky that I could, the work that I was doing was also a benefit for my parents. And a side story, one of my brothers also ended up being part of my program because he had very severe Parkinson's. So I was so lucky to have both my parents and then later on my brother have the fortune of a program like this that I knew I could give them no better than this.
所以我的父母那个时候就在旧金山就享受我协助创办了这个安乐居，然后也顺便跟大家提一下，我的一个哥哥老年的时候有这个帕金森的这个症状，所以他也住进这个也享受这个安乐居的照顾。
the final essence of this one slide, which thank you, Susan, for doing the translation here, is that you have a group of people taking care of this. And instead of relying on a daughter like Lily, who has to coordinate all these pieces, a whole team is doing it, and they work with Lily. And we can keep track of the medications, the different things like their heart disease, or if they have dementia, different things that somebody else knows and knows you over time. So it's you don't have to repeat the story each time because it's a team of people who know you.
最好的长者全包式服务照护中心的地方就是它是一个跨学区的一个照护的方式，然后这个是团队里面都是有医疗团队，还有各种的协调的护理。
And on this slide is describing there are certain conditions that you have to meet in order to enroll in this program. This is not like some of your programs that you have with Medicare now, where you just have a chance to sign up during the sign-up period for benefit. This is really geared for somebody who may need to be in a nursing home.
那谁可以住进来呢？他是必须要被认证的，需要很多的照顾，通常必须要到疗养院照顾的一些人才可以住进来。
So there are many sites now in Southern California, and as Lily mentioned earlier, this is now not just for California. This is a federal program, and there are 30 different states now that have this program that started in San Francisco's Chinatown.
那我们虽然是从三藩市的 Chinatown 开始，现在在南加州，还有全美国30州都有这个全方位的护理中心。
And that's where, Jennie, you played such an important role because the prototype, the model started with the San Francisco work you all did in Unlock. And during your time as a leader there, you helped to make it a policy and a legal actual entity for Medicare and Medicaid. Do you want to share any stories about that? Did you ever have to testify? Did you ever talk about your own story to make it real?
所以这个陈女士是一个非常重要的推手，她把一个地方性的一个政策变成一个联邦的政策，所以现在这个联邦就是可以付费。那我们现在请她提一下，她有没有去国会作证的一些经历。
Yes, Lily, I spent about 5 years going back and forth from San Francisco to Washington to meet with congressional people and the people who run Medicare. So it was a lot of work for a long time, and there were ups and downs. But in 1997, with all the testimony, this became a law that was signed into a bill that affects all of Medicare throughout the country. And this was now 24 years ago.
Amazing. 是的 ，Lily， 我花了5年的时间，从三藩市经常飞到华盛顿特区去，在国会去作证，然后也跟他们做一些协调工作。那我非常高兴的就是1997年，这个就变成一个法律，就是通过联邦的法律，我们现在在Medicare 这个就可以付费。
We in the Chinese American community are so grateful and so proud that you had that leadership role.
我们在华裔社区非常感谢这个陈女士的努力。
Well, I was lucky to do it. And so when we say I went back and forth to Washington, we also went back and forth to Sacramento because this is a state program and a federal program.
我非常的幸运，我那个时候5年中间，除了去华盛顿特区，也经常去沙加缅度， 沙加缅度就是我们加州的国会首都。
You have done so much for us all. Thank you so much.
你真的帮助我们很多，非常感谢您。
Now to talk just a very practical question. How are people eligible to become part of a PACE program? Just a quick summary, please.
Yes. On this slide, it tells you that 90% have medical coverage from the state of California, as well as their Medicare benefit. So that means that people are on the financial poorer side when we first started this program.
所以你从这个表你可以看到90%的人他有所谓的红蓝白卡 Medicare， 再加上低收入的白卡补助，90%的人有这2项。
You notice that 1% there is as a premium. This means somebody who is perhaps middle income or higher middle income. So very small percent. But there is work now happening in Washington to see how we can make the design more affordable for middle income people.
那你可以看到1%的人，他们是中高收入，不符合这个 Medicare 红蓝白卡或低收入的这个规定，但是他们也希望可以接受这个福利，所以他们就自己付费来参加我们的中心。
For this slide, we have put the translation into the chat, and it means that the payment model is both Medicare and Medicaid, right, Jennie?
That's right.
Yes. And then the next, sorry, Susan.
对。I was going to put into the chat.
Oh, thank you. You're doing multiple things all at once. Susan, 真是万能. Thank you so much. And so basically, though, the point is that 白蓝卡, 蓝白卡 can help out. It's both things. The most important thing is if anybody's interested in finding an actual PACE program, we have put into the chat this link. One can see how to do it by zip code.
刚刚那个表，它有一个连接，你就可以找到你们家附近的一个 PACE。
So today, thanks to Jennie and her team at Unlock, look at the wonderful expansion of this as a national program.
所以今天谢谢这个陈女士，我们今天这个 PACE 这个模式已经变成一个全美国的一个模式。
And before you speak, thank you, Lily. You're attributing some of this to me, but you can imagine how many people have had to work. Our legislative people, our friends, our donors who helped us raise money for our building. There are so many people who have made this program possible. So I just wanted to make sure that I am only one part of the team here. Many people and divisions make this possible, and the families themselves.
我只是想说，我只是一个小小的贡献者，这个其实是很多人的努力，包括这个他们的家属看到这么多的福利，然后看到长者的健康真的有在改进，所以他们也很倡导这个议题。
We are very proud, though, that Chinese Americans had a hand in making this possible.
我们非常的骄傲，我们华裔有这个陈女士来推动这个法律。
Because you're such a wonderful storyteller, out of all the years of seeing this program in action, besides how it helped your own family, is there one family story that you recall that will always stay in your heart?
因为您在这个领域很多年，想请问您一下，除了帮助您自己的家庭以外，可不可以提一下怎么样帮助其他的家庭？
I have two short ones. One is, because we're responsible for everybody all the time, this one gentleman who lived by himself ended up getting confused and walked away. And this is something I think we all worry about. And it was Christmas Eve. And I was so unsettled that I went and my husband drove me around the neighborhood. And I knew kind of where he would go, to the Portsmouth Square in Chinatown. And so at night, I went there, walked around. And what was funny is some people thought I was a hooker. But I found him and we brought him back home and got him taken care of. But that meant so much to me, Christmas Eve, to realize he was wandering around and found his place, but he needed to be warm and have food, and we found him. But it was so funny that they thought I was a hooker.
我有一个先生，他那个时候在我们的中心，那在圣诞节的前一天晚上，他就自己走失了，大概有失忆症。那我先生就跟我就很紧张，我们就开着车到中国城去找他，结果找了很久，就找到他，然后马上把他带回来。那很有趣的就是说，很多人以为我是主街女郎，然后所以我就觉得很有趣。
Did you say there's a second story? We must redeem your reputation.
Yes. Well, the second one has to do with somebody who's younger than me, but it turns out his father was in our program. And it turns out he went to college at Boston College after me. And he was going to put his father in a nursing home here in San Francisco, but he realized how important culture was. And so he had his father come to Unlock. His father had dementia. And so, but once in a while, he would recognize his son. And so his son would come visit him and he would always ask him, my son, you're the professor. He says, you have a good job. And so for my friend, this was so important that even though he was so confused, once in a while he had this, but my friend was just secure that his father was taken care of by this community.
另外一个故事就是我有一个学弟，在波士顿大学的学弟，他鼓励他的父亲来我们的中心，因为他觉得这个文化跟饮食，中国的文化跟饮食很重要。然后他的爸爸有失忆症，有的时候会记起这个儿子，有的时候不记得。但是就是我的学弟，他觉得这个有这种中国文化中心的这个中心来服务他的爸爸是非常重要的。
All of us caregivers know it's important to do self-care. So please, Susan and Jennie, take a break and have a drink of water. And while we're doing that, I will invite everyone to put things that they might wish to have an expression about in the chat. And then any questions that you might have. In our next section, we'll just talk a little bit about what does it mean to grow older? What are the ways to find some purpose and meaning?
我们家庭照顾者，我们都知道非常的忙碌，也很忧虑，有的时候，所以都需要好好的照顾自己。那我们现在就休息一下，然后如果您有任何的问题，请放到聊天室里面。我们下一个章节就是比较轻松的谈，在美国变老的过程是怎么样子。
Could everyone? Oh, sorry, Jennie, please go ahead.
I'll be back in 15 seconds.
Yes. I think what is so compelling for those of us who have worked in the aging field is how humble Miss Jennie Chin Hansen is with all her accomplishments, right, Susan?
Yeah, totally. 我们知道这个陈女士她是非常有成就，在这个老龄领域是重量级的人物，但是她是非常的谦虚的一个人，所以她的成就大概40年。Lily 大概40年、50年的成就都是很了不起的。
Yes. So perhaps now, because Jennie Chin Hansen is such a leader, and we have a full hour with her today, she's also interested in taking back to people who are working on aging issues. For example, she has served most recently as an Asian American representative, one of only 2, as California has created a master plan on aging.
这个陈女士的成就包括她现在是接受这个加州州长的邀请，在老龄计划里面的一个做一个咨询委员，只有2位华裔，她跟另外1位先生是在这个老龄计划里面做委员。
Maybe just a quick update on what you did for the Master Plan on Aging, Jennie, and where it stands now. I think California is a leader in thinking about the future of the state in aging.
陈女士可以跟我们谈一下这个加州的老龄计划是怎么样子的？
You know, after all the study over almost 2 years to figure out what the highest needs are in California. And so I'll stop here, but there are 5 big areas that I'll mention.
我们花了2年的时间，想知道我们在加州的人有最需要是哪一方面？我们发现有5个方向。
So the 5 things are, the highest priorities are better housing and more available housing. The fact that there is caregiving, that there is also there's enough income for people to live on, that there is cultural competency and care coordination and all. So these are some things that the state recognizes people do not have great access to in terms of the care coordination with long-term services and supports. So housing, culture, kind of long-term services and supports, enough income, and let's see here, that's
cultural competency.
Right, cultural competency. Okay.
所以我们发现5个地方很有需要，一个就是住房，第2个就是照护方面，第3个是收入，有足够的钱去付这些照护，第4个就是要有文化的背景，照护的人他需要会讲这些语言方面的，然后最后一个就是长期的护理跟支持。
Thank you. Because we have Ms. Chin Hansen with us and she can take back our concerns and our topics to others, I see already some things in the chat which I will read after the interpreting.
因为这个陈女士她是可以直接跟这个加州很高阶层的人沟通，如果您有任何的意见或者是问题的话，请放到聊天室里面。
There is one that is about PACE, which I will get to second. But the first one is very nice. Dan Cow had said, congratulations on the great achievements. And then what are possible main trends in the next 20 years for most of American elderly care?
Susan wanted to...
okay. Sorry, I forgot.
Yes.
非常谢谢高先生的问题，就是未来20年的老龄的趋势是怎么样子？
Well, there is a real concern for whether or not our workers will be enough for all the older people who will be here, because right now there's already a shortage, and it is very challenging sometimes to get workers to help with care at home.
我们现在最担心的就是有没有足够的照护人员可以帮助人家在家里照顾老年方面的人。
On this point, if I may, Jennie, because we're so fresh in the pandemic, they say the pandemic has been like the tide. It went out in the ocean, and now we see all the problems. I will be asking you what you yourself, because I know that what you just said, the home care providers, big change because of the pandemic. What did you personally learn from the pandemic after Susan interprets?
Okay. 我们有听说过这个新冠肺这个好像是一个波浪一样，波浪走了以后，但是留下一些很多的问题。我们想请陈女士分析一下她自己的看法。
I think one of the big things that we all learned that telehealth is going to be more in use. That is one thing that's quite clear. The second thing I bring up is many people, more than ever, do not want to go to a nursing home because of all the issues of health and illness that were so noticeable that the majority of deaths really were in the nursing home facilities.
新冠以后，我们看到长者真的是很不愿意去这种疗养设施，因为我们新冠以后发现的很多的问题。
Yes, and that's why we are so grateful that Amanda Lee has started Happy 50 Plus. During the pandemic, Happy 50 Plus has been such an important community resource for the Chinese community in Southern California and literally all over the United States.
所以我们非常感谢 Amanda Lee 乐活50加的创办人，他在新冠的时候做了很多的事情，除了在南加以外，也在全美国都有做很多的服务。
I see in the chat there's some comments and questions, and so first and foremost, I think dental care for older people is extremely important. It is not separate from medical when it comes to our health. And so there is legislation now in Congress to try to pass for a dental benefit for older people as well. But this has been going on for a long time. But I do want to say that dental services are included in PACE.
Oh, good. 我们在聊天室里面看到2个问题，有关于牙医的问题哦。我自己觉得那个牙齿是应该要跟那个健保放在一起的。然后现在有一些那个法律希望把这个牙医也包括在医疗保险里面。那我顺便提一下，这个牙医保险是包括在我们刚刚讲那个 PACE 的那个模型里面。There is a question regarding Medicare, no Medi-Cal.
Yes. What happens is when you pick that 1% that pays privately in California, I don't have the exact number, but I think it's about $4,500, if not more, a month per person for the private pay.
那对于只有 Medicare 没有 Medi-Cal 就是白卡的人，他们可以自费去参加这个安乐居这种模式，一个月大概我在想是大概4500元左右。
Now we know.
I can say one thing that people should know that when you go to a nursing home, that the private pay amount is probably at least $8,000 a month.
对，那如果要去疗养院自费疗养院的话，一个月至少要8000块。
Yes, I was just going to say, and apologies for the interruption, that you are going to be a resource that's available to Happy 50 Plus going forward.
对，这个非常感谢陈女士，以后会对乐活50加是一个非常好的一个资源。
Because Amanda always has such a wonderful, rich program, there is going to be another session after this. And then please continue to put any questions or any feedback in the chat. We will preserve it. But before Susan interprets, I'll just ask Ms. Chin Hansen to ask one last question is later after Susan interprets, how are you finding meaning and purpose in your own aging? Susan, I'll ask you to interpret and then we'll close out.
OK, 我们最后一个给陈女士的问题就是， 您自己在老年的过程怎么样找到人生的目的？
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the privilege of being with you today. And the questions and issues that you raise, we'll have a chance to review them. And hopefully, perhaps I'll come back at another session and have some information and answers. And I'll say one more thing, Susan, before I do mine, is that just today, I was on a session, a webinar of a woman who wrote a book on people who are aging as a single person. And I think I shared information both with you and Lily, just to say this is a big topic, because in the United States, there are so many women who are single. And so the question is, what is a resource to you? And I see that was one of the questions in the chat.
对，我先非常感谢大家邀请我，然后我自己觉得在美国的老年过程是一个非常复杂的问题。我个人是非常关注年长的女性，就是独居，然后又没有先生、没有子女的一些年长的女性，她们年长的过程是我非常关注的一个议题。
And in terms of my time, all the issues you have in your chat are things that I continue to work on. And one of the things I think is the idea of, they call this new form of housing, greenhouse, which is no more than 12 people. And so I'm working nationally with the group to see if we can piece together these smaller greenhouses as well as PACE in a way that works together. And so this is a project, and I know of one program in Detroit, and I'm going to visit it this summer and hopefully learn something that we can use to do some better work. So I don't work full time for anybody, but I'm still working on projects like this.
我现在比较关注的另外一个议题就是12个人他们可以群居在一起，我们中国人大概叫做抱团养老。我希望看到这个模式可以推广到全美国。我夏天的时候会去底特律参观一个新的一个模式，就是12个人住在一起抱团养老，看看他们是怎么样。我现在已经没有全职的上班，但是我对于我有兴趣的议题，我会继续的推动。
And we'll get some information for you about Ultramed, because that's in the chat, asking for more information. And so we'll do that and provide that to Amanda.
有一些人在问洛杉矶的安乐居这个模式是在哪里？它是叫做 Ultramed。那我会把这些资讯给 Amanda， 她以后会给你们。
So we'll hand it back to Amanda. Thank you so much, Ms. Chin Hansen. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, Amanda, for your vision in creating this for our Chinese American community.
我们现在就交还给 Amanda， 谢谢。Thank you so much.
Thank you, three wonderful women. You know, these three women are the strong forces behind Happy 50 Plus. You can see we are in good hands, you know, for our aging, you know, down the road. No worry at all. 只要你们加入了乐活50加，你看我们有这么多的专家，这么棒的团队。Jennie Chin Hansen 真的不是一般人可以邀请到的哦。那 Lily Liu 其实她非常忙碌，我们一直讲她是一个全职的 family caregiver. She's a wonderful family caregiver for her mother. Susan 大家曾认识了，我们乐活50加的资深义工顾问。Whenever I'm there, she's there. 所以我们大家都很 lucky. Let's move on together, you know, for our aging. Okay? See you soon, Jennie. Okay, thank you, Lily.
Thank you,
Susan.
Thank you, Susan.